Welcome back to Meta Rules TV, where the underground meets the playground. I'm Jeff Rappaport.
Matt Givens.
Mike Hunsicker.
Dave Greathouse.
Of?
Shattered Sanctity.
That's right. I have to remind you about your band, do I, each time? Come on, guys.
Yeah.
All right,
We're established she has
Wait, you're in a
Alzheimer's.
band?
Yeah.
Oh, and the dog vomited.
This is a win across the board.
Yeah, right.
So in the news, Dio vomited.
Sweet.
And the video.
So Trivium has a new album coming out soon. But what was interesting about it was it's being produced by David Draiman of Disturbed. So thoughts, gentlemen, on this?
It's either going to be awesome because Disturbed's more popular than Trivium, so they know more about like mainstream production and polishing it up.
Yeah.
Or
That
it's
might
going to
be
be
cool.
awful, like In Waves was.
Right.
I liked
So,
In Waves.
I don't know. I hope it's going to be really good because their first 4 albums are awesome, and then In Waves came out and they just completely changed.
I didn't hear In Waves at the
Yeah,
last
me
album.
That's the last one they
Yeah.
produced.
I had not heard that album.
It's a lot different.
Is it good though? I mean, still.
I
not a
liked
fan.
it. I know
Does it sound
you
like
hated
folk?
it.
What does it sound like?
It sounds a lot more
Buttholes
like
and
mainstream
Cancer?
metal.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of like the title track off of In Waves, like the whole song. It's just the main riff of the song is a breakdown.
Yeah, there's a lot more chug.
There's a
Okay.
lot. Yeah, that's a very good way to put it. I liked it. I know you hated
So is
it.
it heavier?
It's
Yeah.
heavy in the sense of like not heavy in like thrash metal type heavy as in just chuggy type heavy.
What was the? I always keep trying to mention what it is, but I can't remember the name of the title. The blue cover.
The Crusade?
Yeah, that's my favorite album.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that's my favorite because I thought right there, that's where they sounded the best. They had a great power metal. Do you know that album?
Not too much.
I think you would enjoy that.
I liked it. If you remember, I actually have. It might be their first Ashes to Ember. Is it their first?
That one's
Yeah.
really good.
I have that, and you borrowed that off me for a long time. It was you're like, who's this Trivium I keep hearing about? And I was like, well, I have their album.
Did I like them?
You didn't to an extent because at that point they were still more hardcore-ish.
Right.
And that's actually somebody had
Like
described
Avenged
them,
Sevenfold.
to me. They had described them to me as like hardcore with some Megadeth influence. And actually,
Right.
like 2 of the band members had Megadeth shirts on the back of the CD.
I really like
So,
that one.
I did
That
too.
was a
I
really
liked it,
strong
but
debut.
you didn't like it too much because of the hardcore factor. But later on, because your daughter got into it, you started.
Right.
Yeah.
My daughter started liking him, and I was like, oh, my daughter is 22, so she's gonna be 22 in January.
I have that album,
Like-
and I have the one before In Waves, which is Shogun.
That's my
Shogun
favorite.
was
Yeah.
amazing.
That one's my
Pretty good
favorite.
album. A lot of
Shogun
riffs
was
on that.
really good.
So I mean, the guys are super talented and super tight.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So with Disturbed, it should be interesting. I mean,
What I'm curious about is Disturbed's last 2 albums were self-produced, and honestly, I think the 2 albums sounded exactly the same.
I think all their albums sound exactly the same.
Yeah, they definitely have a disturbed.
Their first
sound.
3, I
Yeah.
think, they sounded like distinctly, in the Disturbed style, distinctly different, musical thoughts.
Right.
And then Indestructible, and I think the last one was Asylum, right? I believe
I don't really
so.
listen to Disturbed that
Those
much.
2 sounded
Yeah.
like, it sounded like they just did the same album over again.
Every time I think of Disturbed, I just keep thinking. I keep. Yeah. That, and I keep harkening back to the day that I was at Ozfest and we were interviewed Godsmack, and we had an option to interview Disturbed or Slaves on Dope, and we picked Slaves on Dope. I thought they were going to be the bigger band,
Really?
so that
You
was
failed.
yeah. I mean, I really liked.
Well, at the time, bands with
I
names
actually-
that were phrases were taken off. So
But actually, I really still
Urban
like Slaves on Dope.
Urban, yes.
I still I like the band, and I thought, and the guys were super. Jason Rockman, the singer for that band, super nice guy, and I thought they were super fucking. I think they were better than Disturbed that day, anyways.
Yeah.
But
I've never seen this.
you make your call and whatever.
The only thing I'm concerned about is you could see the direction Trivium was going after Shogun with In Waves, and I'm wondering how much producing David Draiman is actually doing. If he's just like doing the standard producer roles, or if he's really like delving in and trying to.
I mean, do you
shape
think
the
he's a
music.
Trivium fan? I mean, like.
I don't really know enough
Yeah,
about
it's
him to
hard
say
to
yes
tell.
or no.
Maybe. I mean, I think he's a real. He was. I always read interviews.
He's got a
with him.
pierced chin,
He does. That's
Yeah.
pretty impressive.
and he's Jewish.
He was always talking about being
He's Israeli,
circumcised.
actually.
And, no, I'm just kidding. He was always talking about putting more metal influences into their sound. Like on their second album, they had some priesty moments, and he specifically mentioned that. So I can see him getting into stuff like Trivium.
I mean, who knows? It could maybe David Draiman will be like, In Waves, total shit.
Yeah,
you
out
guys
the
suck.
I hope
Yeah.
they do that because
Maybe they'll make something that tops Shogun.
Yeah.
the thing that
That would be
made
cool.
the thing that made me like Trivium in the first place was the fact that they didn't chug like that. They were metalcore, but they had the big thrash influence,
Yeah.
Right.
and they could shred.
They're pretty
They
diverse. though,
shred
right?
great,
I
yeah.
think, like,
Yeah.
especially Shogun. There's a lot of stuff.
But it
going
was
on.
like when they
First
came out
song
with
alone is
Ascendancy-
8 parts.
Well, Ember to Inferno, like you said, was hardcore with Megadeth influence.
Yeah.
Then Ascendancy came out, they brought in more of the thrash. Then the Crusade came out, which is a full-on thrash album. I
Yeah.
don't care what anybody says.
Yeah, I love that album.
And then Shogun, they
Yeah,
were
listen
starting
to
to come
it
into
with
their
Nancy.
own. I thought they were starting to come into their own sound with Shogun.
Yeah.
Then they just completely just shifted gears with him.
Yeah, that song's pretty intense because there's like a lot going on the Shogun. There's like a lot of.
The title
The
track
first
is one
song
of the
has like
coolest things
80
I've ever
riffs in
written.
it. Like,
Yeah.
it's like crazy, yeah.
All right, so I guess that's what we have on.
But,
So, oh no, more.
Yeah, they look handsome. No, I'm kidding. Well,
They're
I
young
would say
kids, but they're not so young anymore.
a lot of metalheads of more our generation, the older.
Yeah, we'll
guard,
knock them.
Don't like them. But
Yeah,
I
they
think
hate on
that's
them a lot.
bullshit.
Oh yeah, we hate Trivium.
Yeah.
They're not real metal.
Like,
That's bullshit. They're a great band.
We touched on this last week when we did the Hatchet story. You know,
Right.
a lot of people are down on the newer wave of thrash bands, and they're just copying off the old guys. It's nothing new. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So what? Why don't we enjoy the fact that new thrash music is made and not more Linkin Park type music?
Yeah,
Right.
why are we gonna be upset
Why do we
that
gotta like
people? There's some people, Lon Vitello, that just like, oh, I don't. You can't like them. They weren't born when that came out. Who?
Yeah.
Well, that's not their fault.
Yeah, right?
So they fucking like
Yeah, so
Lizzie
what?
Borden, or they fucking like whatever they like.
They took
Anthrax,
the
right?
time-
and
so
they
what?
go, so what?
Good.
They
Why
took
don't
the
we-
time to find the albums that were classic in the metal world, and then they learned how to play them.
Yeah.
That alone should,
You know
Should
that
warrant some credit.
that a
Yeah,
17,
absolutely.
18-year-old kid likes a fucking old school band.
Yeah, exactly.
Why don't we
You
enjoy
know,
that
exactly,
rather
yeah.
than pick it apart?
Then they give me a hard time like, oh, they're not doing it like the 80s. Well, they were fucking born. They didn't have a
Yeah.
choice.
And even, I think it was like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, it was like 07 or 08, back when all the metal magazines were like really, really like covering Trivium, Bullet for My Valentine, and Avenged Sevenfold. They were supposed to be like the new big 3 American metal bands. Trivium had the most metal influence out of all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
Bullet was from England, but
Okay.
Whatever. Sorry. the new wave of metalcore bands. Whatever. But they were saying how all 3 of those bands were bringing metal back,
Right.
and then Bullet went off into like,
they went off.
Whatever
on
they're doing,
tangent.
yeah, they're
I
like-
don't know what the hell they're doing.
and then Avenged Sevenfold. They experimented a lot. I don't really know what you would call them now.
I actually really like Avenged Sevenfold.
I do too,
love
but
their
it's,
music.
I mean, they're metal. It's just kind of hard to pinpoint what they are. You know what I mean?
They're very
They sound-
general.
They sound like Guns N' Roses 2012.
Yeah,
Yes, that's a
basically,
good
yeah.
way to
Yeah.
put it.
Take
But
it
Trivium
down.
always stuck to that just heavy metal style.
Yeah. I guess that's what now?
And
That's
what,
pretty-
what gets me is they're the most
Okay.
hated on out of all 3 bands, for the most part.
Yeah, I'd say that's fair. It's being recorded in Austin. Is the other bit of information I had. Yeah.
That's important to know.
Yes, it is. It's good.
Because, if they want some southern fried steaks,
They're right there.
or like a big steak, 'cause Austin's known for steaks.
Texas steers, yes.
And my friend Beth Graham, her son's name is Austin.
Mm.
So
it's
that's,
recorded
It's going to be an
inside of
angry album because they're just going to be blocked up with all that beef
yeah.
Oh.
and just
just beef and cowboys for miles.
And not only that, but I think the $6 million dollar man is Colonel Steve Austin
Yes.
as well.
As
So
is the
that's-
wrestler, so it
Yeah.
all comes
Yeah.
together.
And I think that's what we have on Trivium.
That's what we have on Trivium.
All right.